My name's Shona Branigan. I'm a printmaker, and I'm very lucky to have a studio at Grizedale Visitor Centre. And it's the Lake District, so it's raining today, so we better quickly walk in and I'll show you around. Here's the outside of my studio. It's one of 5 stables at Grizedale Visitor Centre. Very wet today, so possibly it would be an idea to actually go inside before we talk anymore. So let's step inside. There we are, that's better. Welcome to the inside of my studio at Grizedale. It used to be a stable, and then during the Second World War, when Grizedale Hall was a prisoner of war camp, they used the stables for different purposes. Not sure what they actually did in this one, but it's a lovely space to be in, and big enough for all the things that I need to do in it. So what I'll try and do over the next 20 minutes or so of the video is I'll explain to you the kind of engraving that I do, wood engraving, wood cutting, and then how I actually came to do wood printing, which is really the focus of the work that I have in the Hepworth Print Fair, and also the work that Watermark Gallery sell for me. And then I'll demonstrate how I actually make the wood a printable surface and how I print it. And then after that, I'll take you on a little tour of all the different pieces of wood that I have in the studio, because a lot of them have really interesting stories to tell. So my journey to printing trees began, well, many years ago, with a love of trees, which I've always had, to be honest. But I suppose specifically in terms of printmaking, it began probably about 7 years ago, when I discovered wood engraving. And this is one of my wood engraving blocks, which is 7 pieces of boxwood, fantastically glued together by Chris Dawn. He taught me wood engraving, and he's the block maker, and he's also a fantastically talented wood engraver himself. And if you did feel interested to have a go of wood engraving, then he's the man to get in touch with. So wood engraving is working across the grain, cutting the wood with tools with very sharp little points on the end, pushing in and pressing and doing different shapes. And what you're actually doing there is you're cutting out bits of wood where the ink won't go, because with it being relief printing, the ink will sit on the surface, it's rolled on the surface, and when it's pressed, obviously there's the print, and everything that you see in the print that's white is what I've actually used the tool to cut away, to engrave away. So I really enjoyed doing that, and very lucky at the same time to have the opportunity to demonstrate wood engraving in the Birthplace Museum of Thomas Bewick. This is actually, the museum is actually just a minute's walk from where I used to live many years ago when my sons were young. And they've got a press room there with an Albion press, which is what we can print the wood engraving blocks on, and also a star wheel press for printing intaglio prints from copper plate, because I've done a bit of etching and engraving on copper as well. But what was so good about Cherryburn as well was the visitors that would come in, and we'd be able to talk to them and show them how printmaking was done, and also for me to be able to enthuse about Thomas Bewick and what a great talent he was, and what an interesting man he was as well. His memoir is a fantastic book if you get hold of a copy to read. It's really interesting. So while I was actually there, I used to go every Thursday to demonstrate as a volunteer at Cherryburn. I started to, well, I randomly, I think maybe through Facebook or something like that, I mean social media was obviously really useful, discovered this man, Brian Nash Gill. Quite sad that he actually died young. I think he was in his early 50s, and he died, I think it was in 2013. And possibly I learned about this because the book had been produced, and what he was actually doing was printing the wood itself, printing whole tree rounds. And as soon as I saw that, because I love trees and I love connecting with wood, I've been photographing trees for years and drawing them, but to have the opportunity to actually print the surface of the wood was just so exciting, and I thought I absolutely have to have a go. Interestingly, they called the book woodcut, but he's not doing woodcuts. I mean, woodcut, like wood engraving, is when you use a sharp tool and you cut away, and it's across, no, sorry, not across the grain, down the grain. So for example, if we look up here, those two blocks there are plywood blocks, and they're both woodcuts. And I've cut away and scratched away and made various marks on the blocks, which then print. And if we look over there, there's the print of the dappled line. So that's wood cutting. So what he was actually doing was wood burning. That was his technique. And through burning the wood, what that was actually doing was burning away softer wood rather than cutting it away and leaving a difference in height. So you then had a raised surface, so that when you print, same as wood engraving, what's white is what's burnt away, and it shows as white in the print. And I managed to find a very brief video of Brian actually burning a piece of wood, and he had it was huge actually. His blowtorch was massive. It was a massive big bottle of gas with a huge flame. So I just thought, I don't think I'm probably going to play with that. But I bought myself a handheld blowtorch with a little gas canister and set to with that. And effectively here, this is the round of damson, which is part of the Hepworth Fair. If I turn it over, give you an idea of how things actually start. So this is how it came. This is how the wood looks when it's given to me. I mean, it's nicely cut, but obviously not sanded. So the first thing that I do with the wood is sand it as smooth as possible, because I need to get all the marks out that I don't want to show in the print. And then with the blowtorch, I just literally burn the surface. Quite quickly it'll turn from black to silver, so that I know that it's actually burning away. And then what I can actually do is, with a variety of different wire brushes, is just brush the surface quite a long time to make sure that I get every little bit of ash out, because if I don't, it'll obscure the detail and I won't actually get a print, to show me everything. Lots of wire brushing, then I'll seal it with shellac, and then I'm ready. It's a printable surface. So and this one is incredibly detailed. When I say, I was concerned a little bit at the beginning when I was given it, that I would be able to get a good print, because the detail, I mean, zooming in here, it's hard to tell, but the growth rings are so close together and so tiny, and I wasn't sure if the burning process would be able to cope with it. But thankfully it did, and I didn't disappoint, because essentially, because I was given the round, the arrangement I have is that whoever gives me a round that I can print, or a piece that I can print, and I'll give the first print of the edition goes to the giver of the wood. And with this one, because it came from a next door neighbour's garden, so the family brought it, I gave them a print, and I gave the owner of the tree a print as well. So in terms of, the raised surface, if we listen, you can hear it, can't you? And I suppose through my experience with wood engraving, having been used to cutting out tiny little specks and having a raised surface that's almost difficult to feel sometimes, I suppose it gave me the confidence then to know that because there is a difference in height, that it will actually print. So I'll show you how I do it. So in terms of printing it, the ink that I use is oil-based ink. It's traditional ink, linseed oil mixed with pigment. You need a little bit, so you obviously roll it out. You can hear it. The first rolling's you can hear the noise and you can see a lot of grain, so quite often that's too thick to apply, which makes it quite different to things like lino cuts where you probably do put a lot thicker on. So if you roll it out again, it's a lot quieter and thinner, and so it means that, like with wood engraving, you can apply a few very thin layers of the ink to to get it nice and smooth. So a few thin layers, and they can be in different directions. Means that we've actually got enough ink there, but not too much to actually lose detail. And what I use for printing it with is applying pressure with is a bone folder. It's a bookbinder's tool, and I use, I've tried different papers, but one I've come to rely on and love the most is called a heritage rag paper, and I get it from John Purcell in London, and I weight it down because one of the biggest ways that the print gets spoilt is if the paper moves a tiny amount. And let's just say that out of my plan chest drawers, drawer number 3 is absolutely full of all the prints that haven't quite worked. They might be fantastic for most of the print, and then something happens towards the end, or I've missed a tiny bit. It's just always incredible how different things can happen. But in terms of the printing process, applying pressure with the tool, you can hear the wood, can't you? And what you can't tell from the video, but what I can see, is that as I press, the paper goes shiny, and it actually shines to show me the detail of what the image is going to be. So it means that although there's a piece of paper between me and the wood, I can actually see the image as it's coming along, which is lovely, because then I'm very connected with what I'm doing. It feels then that every time I'm doing it, it's unique and original. Okay, let's see. Let's reveal the print. I'll take the weights off. And there's a little bit of the damson printed. So I hope you've enjoyed seeing how it's actually done. And I would like to show you the silver fir round. Lovely big piece. This is in the Hepworth Fair and in Watermark Gallery. Printed it in ultramarine but also in black ink. And that came from a garden on the shore of Lake Windermere. And if we walk over to the plan chest, there we are. There's one of the prints. That's how it looks in ultramarine. It's a beautiful piece, isn't it? And one up there, which is hard to see from this angle, but that's one of the Douglas fir prints. And the piece of wood, come round here, there it is, that's that piece of wood there. So that's from a Douglas fir tree that grew, and those two pieces on the end there are the same tree, that grew just along from the Anne building here at Grizedale. 95 years. And it's possible to walk along there actually and to stand where the tree stood for that amount of time, which is lovely. And that's a big part of what I enjoy doing, and why I'm printing wood, is because the trees are special individuals like we are. We're all different, we all have our unique life, and that's important to me to be able to share that. I'd like to give you a little tour of some interesting pieces that I have in the studio. There's a print of the damson in black, and various pieces of wood, and then coming over to here, this piece. Isn't that fabulous, the colours and shapes on that? That's the back of a wonderful piece of wood. So if we turn it round, you can probably hear there how heavy it is with the clunk. It's from County Durham. I don't know the particular tree. I was given that piece of wood from a man called David Shields, who loves wood as much as I do. And it's the piece that I burnt and worked on with Helen Skelton on Country File. And luckily it went really well, and we got a good print as well at the end, which is good, obviously. This piece is super too. It's a very long piece, down an elm tree. So it goes through the bark and the burrs. And that piece I was given, if we walk over here, I'll show you the print while I tell you the story of this particular piece. I was actually in the framers getting my big oak round framed up for the first time, and a woman there I'd never met before was excited by what I was doing, and she said, I have a piece of wood in the garage that you'll be interested in. So I was invited for lunch, and they brought their piece out from the garage, and it's just so interesting, isn't it? How the burr shapes create such wonderful patterns. And the other thing about it, which thrilled me as well, was that I asked her where she got the piece of wood from, and she said Hexhamshire Hardwoods, which is a wonderful wood yard. If you love wood, you'll love it there. It's a treasure trove. It's just outside Hexham, and it was about 13 years ago that they got the piece, which was quite exciting, as I say, because looking down here at this picture, that was one of the probably about the second piece I printed after the oak, which is a small slice of elm, which I got probably at a similar time. So it's quite possible that it's the same tree, which is just brilliant. Underneath the printing press, I have quite a lot of the rounds. It's a good place to store them. So the one on the front there's a U round, which is one of the prints that Watermark has. I've probably got more U than anything, partly because I get very excited by U. It's wonderful. The outline of it is fantastic. The shapes are gorgeous, so it makes just a lovely, lovely picture. So whenever I see anyone with any U, I'm usually quite quick to grab it if I can. But things like this is just a random piece of oak burr, and it's just fascinating. All the random, gorgeous, different little shapes, nooks and crannies, and they all print, which is just super. What else can I show you? If we go down here, I've got one of my dry points. So this is what I work on. I'm doing dry point intaglio printing as well now, where rather than working on copper, you can work on plastic. But the technique's the same, the tools are the same. You have dry point tools, which are sharp points, which you engrave. Well, no, you don't really engrave, to be fair. You scratch and scrape into the surface and make a rough surface. And this is the opposite to wood printing, in that the lines that you create is where the ink will actually sit. Completely different method of printing it, which I won't go into now, but I could make another video about. And the print of that one, if we come back, yeah, that's how it looks printed. And I've really enjoyed doing those, and the wood cutting. And I'm going to expand into trying a bit of chronograph printing as well. This is a piece that I like as well. It's just a random chunk of wood, which is elm, and it's got so many different shapes and patterns in it. It's just really wonderful. Got more dry point there. And actually over here, yes, there's a lovely little piece. Let's find the little piece in here. Where is it? Oh yeah, there it is. This is my oldest piece of wood, and this was given. So many pieces of wood are given, which is just fantastic. So this piece is, I've been reliably informed, is 6,000 years old. And you can still tell what it is. It's still a tree, and there's the rings on it. So the reason that I know that is that it was dug up in the Pennines and in the peat layer, and apparently it was dated because of where it was in the peat layer, and small slices were given to the staff, the National Park staff, and And a woman who knew I was printing wood, who again I hadn't met, said, "Oh, I think I've got a piece of wood you'd like," and so she gave it to me. And it's just wonderful. It's as light as a feather. So I've got that, and then actually there's another interesting piece here. I was given this piece as well, and this is I think it's oak, and I was told that this was a fence post, part of a fence post on the island of Islay for 100 years, and this was given to me by a woodsman who loves wood. So of course he now has a print of it as well. So there's all these different interesting little pieces. This is a print from just a random piece of wood I found in woodland in North Yorkshire, which was all, you can see these lines in it here are like spelt marks, but everything can print. So there you are, all the different things that you can do and explore and enjoy with wood and with trees.